So I was in the hospital again. This is like my millionth attempt to make this video, so I'm gonna make it short because I guess it's hard for me to talk about, and maybe that's why I'm so anxious, and maybe I can go into more detail later when I'm not feeling so anxious. But basically I tried to like hurt myself again, I guess. And I came pretty close. I'd already overdosed and I'd already written a note, and they ended up calling the police, and I ended up being taken to the hospital. And then in the hospital, they moved me from that hospital to like another hospital after they got all this stuff, because they couldn't immediately put me in like a mental hospital because they had to check, I can't really remember everything, but I think they were like checking my blood or something, or my liver or something. It was like they put me in like a medical hospital first to make sure that I was gonna be okay medically first, and then they moved me from that to a mental hospital, and then from that hospital they moved me to a hospital in downtown DC. And then I asked to leave because from the hospital in DC they moved me to like another place, and then I was like, I'm not getting any help. I want to go home. I'm feeling better now. And I'm so anxious. Like, I stopped taking my medication, not all my medication, just my anxiety medication, and as a result I kind of have to deal with all of my anxiety. So I'm sorry, that's why I'm talking so strange. But basically what happened is, because March is really hard for me, you guys know that, it happened again basically around the anniversary of my mother's suicide, demonetized. Around the time of my mother's suicide, I got really depressed again, and I didn't realize that's why, because I wasn't really thinking logically. I got this tunnel vision I get when I get depressed, where I just really didn't see any way out. And honestly, I was so delusional, and I thought that I was helping my family by doing this. They took my note away, but I had written a note, and basically it was like for a convenience thing, so I could just, because it had gotten to a place where I was so far gone that sorry, my mind is feeling weird. Basically, why am I so, obviously I didn't, oh my god. It's hard for me to think, but okay, please, I'm sorry. I'd gotten to a place where, in my mind, in my delusional mind, I thought I was helping my family. I thought I was relieving them of this burden, and you know, I was so much of a burden on my family and everybody around me that I was really helping everybody by getting myself out of the way, and they weren't really gonna miss me. You know, they would do the normal mourning that comes along with anybody's death, but they would move on because they were resilient, unlike me, who was still never really coped with my mom's death. And you know, everybody else seemed to have, in my mind, moved on, you know, because I was the only one who was still thinking about it. So I figured that they would be fine. You know, if you can lose your mother, you can lose your sister. And that I was really helping because they wouldn't have to deal with me. That's the way I saw it. I saw it as me helping my family, doing them a favor. I don't remember what I wrote in my note. I wish I did, but I'm kind of glad they didn't give it back to me. I'm not sure who has it. I just remember when I went, it was like there were like officers. It's really blurry. I feel like my mind is trying to make me not remember. But there were some, it was, because it's always like the firemen, the police, or an ambulance was one of those people, and they took, I went in an ambulance, but they took my note, so I never got it back. I'm not sure if I'd lost it moving from hospital to hospital to hospital to hospital, or if they just took it and then it never even made it to the hospital. I'm not sure. Once they took my stuff, it was just gone. But I do remember how I ended it. I signed it, and instead of writing sincerely, I wrote, "You're welcome." And I think that's very telling to my state of mind at the time. I don't really remember everything, but I do remember writing, "You're welcome." And I remember by the time that I had drunken those bottles of pills and had written the note, sorry. I was convinced I was doing the right thing. I always try to do the right thing. And in that moment, I thought I was doing what was right for my whole family. And gosh. I thought I was helping. I don't remember. It wasn't very long. But it wasn't, okay, I'm sorry. I haven't really thought about this too much until right now. I don't want to make this too drawn out. But basically, I had gotten so deep in that depression, and I guess that's what it was, because I was thinking irrationally, but I wasn't thinking like illogically. I don't even know if you can call it delusional or just really, really depressed, because it wasn't like when I get hallucinations and, you know, I was hearing aliens tell me that I had to kill, and it was like all this like insanity. It was just, I was very, very depressed. You know, I still knew who I was. It was just the depression, and I'm losing my train of thought. I'm sorry. Basically, the whole like month, mostly, save for like a moment here or there, I was miserable. I think I made one video, which was my last video. Before I was even in the hospital, and then I posted it once I got out, because I realized I hadn't posted in a while. But I didn't do much for all of March. Why can't I think? I was thinking fine before. Okay, so basically, that whole time I was just like, well, any day now. I have to die any day now. And it got to the point where I wrote that note and then just put it in my pocket, and then it was like, you know, I can kill myself at any time, and if anybody finds my body, I'll have a note ready. Again, it was for like convenience. and I thought that would be helpful. So once I had written that note, I was like, well, my days are numbered. I can die anytime now. And then, but that was after like weeks of me just being really depressed and sort of just being miserable. I think I started messing with my medication. I had run out of most of it, and then I guess in a last-ditch effort, I upped my dosage of antidepressants, Cymbalta. In the hospital later, they told me that like suddenly spiking your antidepressants like that can lead to suicidal thoughts, but then again, I always get really depressed during that time, so it might have been one or the other, or both, probably both. I'm sorry, I can't think. It's anyway, what was I saying? I wasn't even like wearing clothes. I was just walking around in like a bathrobe or something every single day, just miserable. And I would just like watch YouTube on my TV, and I wasn't really talking to anyone until the very end, where I started getting a lot more friendly and stuff. Like, you know how when certain people, because it's like I became so resolved and like this is what's gonna happen, that I didn't want to scare anybody or have them think that I was suicidal and then try to help me. So I, you know, acted like everything was fine, to the point where I'm sure my sister got suspicious because I'm always like miserable. So it's like, why is she happy? But oh, this is hard. I'm sorry. That day, I don't remember everything, but I know that day I was sitting watching TV, and I was just like, I felt like I was already dead. Like, not to be like really dramatic, but that's how I felt. I felt like, well, I can do it anytime now. Like, and then I sort of just, you know, asked my sister, hey, could you get me a glass of water? You know, and she brought me a cup of water, and I just, you know, she was sitting right there, and I just sort of, oh, that's terrible. That's terrible. That's terrible. Oh my God, no. Then I took like the pills, and I was like taking them, like in like handfuls, but not in a way that would make her feel like there was any reason to get like, to panic. So I would be like, when she would turn her head or something, I would just take a fistful. Then she turned away, and I'd just be sipping at the water. And some time went by, and I don't know, maybe she noticed that the bottle went from being like full, it was brand new, to empty, and all my other bottles were empty. And I left one in there in case anybody needed one. I didn't want to be rude. But wow, I don't know, something happened, they had to call 911. I had already overdosed by then, and I don't remember everything. But I ended up in like this hospital, and I don't know when my dad found out. Oh, this is so hard to like, because I don't, oh God, it's gonna be so hard to watch because I can't speak. But when I got in the hospital, I was there for a little while in like the medical hospital. I don't really remember, to be honest. I feel like that part is like not there, kind of like parts of my childhood. I just kind of got rid of them, and now I'm trying to bring them out to tell you about them, but I don't really remember. It's like blacked out. but I don't want to tell little piecey parts of the story. I want to be able to tell you the whole story, but I don't remember everything. I remember the end, and I remember towards the end. So I guess I can just skip towards the end, and by the end of it, I was just sick of being in that hospital. I had moved so many times, and none of the doctors were listening to me, so I asked them to let me go, and I would just take care of myself. And obviously they didn't want to let me go. They were like, no. And I filed an AMA, which is when you go against medical advice, and I told them I wasn't suicidal anymore, because I wasn't. The way that the delusion, I guess, ended was I realized why I was thinking the way I was when I was just sort of thinking about my whole life, I guess. And I had already overdosed by then, and I was just chilling on the couch waiting for death, and I guess it dawned on me that this was all a result of the anniversary of my mother's death, and I was able to sort of snap out of that and get them to, I was just like, oh, you should probably call 911 because I'm dying. So there was no sense of urgency. I thought, well, if I die, that's cool. If I live, that's cool too. And then in the hospital, I realized that I wanted to live, and I want to live right now. And my dad, after the whole thing, he was like, it'd be so great if we could go 1 year where March comes along and you have no episodes. And I was like, yeah, that's all I want too. Because it used to be like March, and even on my birthday and in like the holidays, because my mother's birthday was around that time, and the holidays are usually just hard for everybody, I would just have episodes then. And now I don't have episodes around my birthday or the holidays. It's just March. So hopefully by 2020 in March, I won't have any more episodes. I mean, ideally I just wouldn't be depressed at all, but I mean, hopefully I won't have to go to the hospital again, because that was miserable, and I don't like putting my family through that. But in my mind, I thought that was what was best for the whole family. I don't know what happened, like, for me to just all of a sudden just break out of that, because I was thinking that way that entire month, and even before that. That was just like when it was at its worst. When I got out, I had to see a psychiatrist and a psychologist, or a therapist, and I got a therapist, and I've had like 2 sessions with them, and I had an appointment with my psychiatrist. I actually had one, okay, so it was like the 15th. I had an appointment on the 15th, but I missed it because I was in the hospital on the 15th. So I had to reschedule, and I canceled it with them, and now I have a new psychiatrist, but that's closer. Anyway, the whole thing is really hard to just talk about just orally. Perhaps I could write it, but speaking about it is like, I can speak about it, but it's like my memory, I don't remember everything, and I want to. But I had put it out of my mind until today and before when I was trying to film. And the whole thing it makes me really anxious, but I know I haven't made a video in a while, and I wanted you guys to know how I was and what was going on. Basically, it was a really hard time, a bad time. Almost died, but I didn't, and now I want to live. I want to live more than I did before. I know it doesn't sound like it, but this is kind of a bummer to talk about. Forgot how sad I was, but now I realize that I have siblings that I have to look after and be a good example, and they would be really sad if I was gone. And they told me that, and I know that, but then I thought, oh, well, you'll be sad, but you'll get over it. Like, you got over mom, and like, this is what's best for you guys. I know now that that's not. I'm gonna try and work through all this with my therapist, and maybe it'll be easier to talk about in like a month's time, and I can actually redo this or something, because right before I left, things got pretty funny. There were some like funny people in that hospital, in the last one, the one in DC, but hopefully this was okay in the meantime. And if you guys want to comment, I can like reply to your comments and stuff, but it's really hard to talk about this. I'm sorry. Hopefully I can upload more often, but I might have to upload stuff that's not necessarily related to mental health, just because they're all demonetized. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. Or most of the ads don't get to go on them. Or like I'll try to put ads and it'll be like, no, you can't. It's limited. And I want to try and make money from YouTube, and so I don't have to go and work in customer service again. I'm just kidding. No, but I'd like to give this a try as a job before I try and get a job. So I'll try and make some videos that are a little on the lighter side, and then regularly post stuff on mental health also. But yeah, I just feel really weird, and I'm sorry that this wasn't as clear as I'd hoped, but hopefully I'll be able to touch on it soon, and hopefully I'll be able to post a live stream soon. I'm not sure when, but let me know if you guys even want that, and I'll do it. And I'm gonna like take a nap or something, because I feel like drained, but I've got more I want to talk about. I need to get I can't speak, I'm sorry.